session. I took a little electrolyte drinking break, but let's talk about the actual race. So I feel like a lot of questions came about like how New York City specifically works. So I'll answer questions just about how like generally a marathon works and then some of like the New York City specific quirks. If you don't know, New York City is one of the 6 world major marathons. The 6 majors are Chicago, New York, Boston, and then London, Berlin, and Tokyo. So there's just like a level of attention, prestige, like extra-ness that comes to these marathons. 50,000 people ran New York City Marathon. Most marathons are like in the thousands, so it's just a lot more spectacle and fanfare, and it's obviously a beautiful achievement to be able to run New York, and I felt so honored and blessed of the opportunity. But at the same time, it's like a lot of more hurdles you kind of have to walk through than a traditional marathon. So some things about a marathon, obviously, you go to the start line, you're gonna have all your gels, your race outfit, your bib, you're gonna pick that up, you're gonna see your family along the way. I think the biggest thing I learned about like getting ready for the marathon day is treating every single long run like it's marathon day. So making sure you sleep well, making sure you lay out your clothes the night before, what you're doing in terms of recovery the night before. So I would pretty much like Epsom salt bath, maybe foam rolls, stretch, use my massage gun, use my cupping thing that I have now, which is funny. Use my Normatex, anything like that to just like prep the legs for the long run that I'll do on Saturday morning. Saturday morning, making sure my breakfast is consistent, making sure it has carbs because that's the primary source that is used when you do aerobic activity. So I would pretty much eat like oatmeal. That was like my go-to breakfast before I would run. I'm someone that I have to eat a lot before I run. I've made a lot of videos about how I don't think fasted cardio is good. Also specifically like endurance running, specifically for women with your hormones, as someone who has lost their period before, had eating disorders, that whole stuff. If it works for you, great, but there's a lot of science about how like fasting is really bad in terms of cortisol for women, but I will let you figure that out at your own volition. So all to say, long run Saturday, I'm eating oatmeal, drinking my coffee, consuming weed, and then I will get ready to go. I have to give myself a lot of time to digest before I run. I think that's the biggest issue people have with eating before runs is like you eat and then 10 minutes later you go run. I would probably throw up too. Caffeine and weed to hit in the way that I want them to. A lot of people asked about THC and how I approach that. Probably run like 95% of my runs with THC, and it's just a plant medicine that I use throughout my life. I'm here to destigmatize it. I feel like a lot of people are on antidepressants that give me shit for weed. I'm taking something, you're taking something. If you don't like what I'm taking, that's your own. I say do whatever makes you feel good. And I've never found like a thing that has really helped me like weed has helped me. I always keep telling my mom, like if I found weed in high school, not just like I'm consuming weed socially, but using it in a strategic way, I wonder if I wouldn't have burnt out academically because I feel so much more controlled about my life, not in control of my life, but I just feel so much more relaxed, so much less anxious, so much less pressure on myself. I feel like the perfectionism has just really gone away with weed. And then secondly, it helps a lot with recovery, specifically if you're looking into certain strains and using CBD in terms of recovery as well. So yes, I ran the marathon high. I practiced all my long runs high. I took this little container that I have and I chopped up edibles into like 2 milligram dosage that I would take kind of throughout the run. And it worked for me. If it doesn't work for you, that is totally fine. It's been like a lifestyle change, and I didn't think that I would literally be a stoner. Like, it's quite funny that I consume weed now because I was very straight edge my whole life. I didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't do anything. And so weed has been like this past year for me pretty much. So I trained with it, and so that on race day, it was like just in the routine to use it. I had a little bit of an atraditional marathon experience because I worked with the brand Athletic Greens, so they were kind enough to offer my family to stay in a hotel. I know, I can't believe it. They reached out to me after my dad passed and were like, we would love to be able to put your family up in a hotel. It's the least we can do. And I was like, that would mean so much just financially where my family's at. For a while, I didn't think they were going to be able to come. So had the perfect weekend with Athletic Greens. We stayed in a hotel near Central Park. And so there's a few organizations that the New York Roadrunners allows to like drive across the Verrazano Bridge to get to the start line. I was going to take the ferry and then take a bus, but Athletic Greens was like, we have a car to drive you to the start line so you don't have to do the ferry thing. And I was like, wow, I will do whatever the hell you guys tell me to do. So woke up at 4:30. We had to be in the hotel lobby at 5. We got to the start line about 7 a.m. and I didn't start running till 10:20. I was probably on the earlier side. I knew some people that didn't start running till like noon. So if you're running New York specifically, I would say strategy is just to think about everything else but running for as long as you can. It didn't even cross my mind of like what I was waiting for. I was like, oh, I have to run a marathon. Like I didn't want to think about that because I knew if I sat there and thought about 26.2 miles, I would freak out. And so I was hanging with friends, I was chatting, you know, I was eating on the island, hydrating. There wasn't really service, which is probably good, so I didn't have to like panic look through my phone before. And then the race started at 10:20, or like my corral started. So there's like 3 different waves of colors. So I was like pink wave, wave 3, corral something. There's all these different like logistics and hurdles you have to jump through because there's like 50,000 people once again. Most other marathons, it's like you show up to the start line and then you just start, but New York's a little bit of a unique one because it is a major. Interesting thing about New York is that since you're waiting on this island, a lot of people bring throwaway clothes, and so you'll bring like an old pair of sweats or something like that, and then there's donation bins and volunteers come and pick them up after the race because there's no spectators, so like no family or friends or anyone at the start line. It's only just runners and volunteers. So if you have extra clothes, you kind of got to ditch them because you're running to Central Park. You will not be coming to Staten Island. So I just brought like old sweats that I was going to get rid of, and I just threw those out. I packed a lot of food. I packed all my nutrition. I had my bib on. So around like 9:40, I took off my sweats and I put them in the donation bin. I'd already eaten my breakfast and like drank my coffee, went to the bathroom like a lot of times because I was like, I do not want to have bathroom problems in this fucking marathon. And then, you know, I put on my bib, I put my gels in, and then I went over to the corral. You wait there for a little bit. I did my dynamic warm up, and then you walk over to start. So you start on the Verrazano Bridge, you start on an incline, and then you're off. There's 3 different like waves or colors, as I mentioned. So 2 of them start on top of the bridge, 1 of them starts underneath. I was underneath, I think. I don't know, you both get going to the same place, but the first mile, there's like 3 different groups, and then you started. As soon as I got on the bridge, I was like, I want to run this first mile really slow. I have an issue of running a lot of my runs way too fast. So I was like, run slow, take your time. I was checking my phone and just got like 40 different texts because I finally had service once again. So I just jogged that first mile. I was taking videos. I was smiling. It was like, why are you texting us? Aren't you running? And I was like, yeah, but I'm having fun. It's very like me to, you know, vlog and text while running. That's probably the most common comment I got on my social media was like, how are you vlogging while you're running the marathon? And I was like, baby girl, it's my job. Trust me, I've been doing this. I know how to do it. And then the second most common question was like, how are you high during the marathon? Which was a whole other thing. But we already chatted about that, right? About start line, we talked about weed, we talked about all that stuff. I think in terms of preparation, one thing that I did that I'm really happy with is practicing all of the nutrition and gels and hydration stuff on my long runs. So I experimented with like a lot of different gel brands to just like find one that I could digest and that was providing me like the energy I needed. And then on my long runs, I would do that. It's pretty typical to want to consume about like 20 to 25 milligrams of carbohydrates every 30 minutes. So when I was doing my long runs, I didn't really think about my long runs in terms of distance. I thought about it in terms of like time on my feet. Obviously, like distance is programmed into my running program. But if I was running for 3 hours, let's say, I knew that I had to pack 6 gels and I knew I would take one on every 30 minutes. And that's kind of what happened with me on race day. So it felt really intuitive of like how to fuel. You do not want to show up to the marathon and never have taken a gel before. That is not going to be good. So take a gel. I would suggest to pack your own gels. They do hand them out at the race day, but I feel like that's the last thing you kind of want to worry about. You also don't know like what flavors you're going to get, so it just could be disappointing. Now, I didn't run with a water bottle. That was like a few reasons. One, I wasn't going for like a time or a pace, so I didn't really care about like how I was going to hydrate. 2, they do give out water every single mile and also Gatorade. So I knew that that would be enough for me, right? That would be like every 9 to 10 minutes when I was running. I thought that would be sufficient. And then I also had planned to see my family 3 times. And 2 of the times, like the last time I saw them was the last mile of the race. But the first 2 times my sister handed me a water bottle with like Element electrolytes in it. So I was able to have that as my hydration for like a good chunk of the race. I feel comfortable with that in terms of like a hydration strategy. One thing I would change is they do make electrolyte tabs. I don't know the brand, but they kind of look like Pepto-Bismol type things. And I know a lot of runners use them. I just never got into that stage of like experimenting and trying them. But I'm definitely going to try them when I do train for my next marathon, because I think that could be something that benefited me, just to rely on those versus like having electrolytes, because Gatorade I was drinking and I didn't really love it or hate it, but it was fine, I suppose. I ran with my phone like this. I personally don't have a problem running with my phone in my hand. I get that DM a lot. I think I've always just done it. And so maybe my center of balance is like off a little bit, but I always just have my phone in my right hand like that. And then I never had a vest or like a water hydration thing. Maybe if I was running a trail race, I would invest in one of those, but I don't think it's needed for a marathon. I fit all my gels in my pockets. The sports bra I wore was from Planet Noosa, who I'll be designing a collection with next year. So the idea is that one day I will race in stuff that I design, which is crazy. And then the shorts that I wore are by Outdoor Voices, which had 2 pockets on the side, so it worked pretty well for me. And then I ran in the Mach X by Hoka, which was my race shoe, and all 3 did great for me. Somehow it was hot in New York and that was enough for me, and I didn't have to pack layers. Like, I packed the throwaway clothes, but that was my, you know, race fit that I decided on. I mentioned this all over my social media, but I didn't have a goal time and I kind of wanted to unpack what that meant. So I think when some people sign up for a marathon, you know, there's the Boston Qualify, you want to hit that time, or maybe you want to be sub 4 or whatever. Anything that I did on race day would have been a personal best, okay? And that's not for me to say like cutting myself slack and like go walk half the miles and not try and give up, whatever. But I don't really know what my body was going to show up like. And I think it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself to perform for upwards of 4 hours for the first time and for you to expect everything to go well. Okay, what if your stomach hurts? What if a random thing cramps up in your body, right? You don't want any of these things to happen, but you've never put your body in that environment with that stress, with the crowds, with everything. And so I just didn't want to expect anything out of myself. I knew roughly, okay, I'd be able to finish in this amount of time. I knew it'd be like around like 4 hours or something like that. But basically when I got to that start line, I did a lot of sort of this hippie shit. And I told myself, like, I am so grateful you're here. You made it here. You're actually in this moment. You know, you're not injured. You can walk, you can run, and you're gonna see your mom, you're gonna cross the finish line. It just felt so emotional for me that like I didn't give a fuck about the time at all, right? And to get to my next point, which was the fact that my GPS on my watch didn't work, even if I wanted to attempt a certain time, I kind of had no idea what was going on. For context, you know, there's 50,000 people running, and so my watch GPS was giving me the most inaccurate paces of all time. It was saying like 16-minute mile, and then it would say 5-minute mile, and I was like, I know I'm neither of those, so what the fuck's going on? It's funny because my run coach Mary texted me as I crossed the finish line. She was like, perfect splits, I'm so proud of you. And I was like, Mary girl, I had no idea what the fuck was going on the whole time. And if you're running a race and you're concerned with what I'm saying, not like normal, whatever the fuck, but just a lot of people trying to access, you know, the internet at the same time on a race, and also all the spectators. But one thing you can do is you can click auto lap on your watch. So every time you pass the physical mile marker of like mile 1, mile 2, mile 3, you can click lap, and so then that will track it as your first lap. But at the same time, like, I remember I clicked lap for the first mile and my watch still read out like 0.83 miles. So clearly it was not working. So that's all to say that like my coach Mary did give me like a race strategy of certain paces and how to like ease into speeding up and like how slow to start my race. But honestly, once I got into the race, I kind of threw it out the window. So I mean, you know, it's a learning experience. I know a lot of you guys asked, like, what would you do differently? I don't think I would do anything differently about how I ran the race for New York, but it's just good, you know, insight to have as I do train for more marathons now. It's like, okay, now I know what I can do. I know my inefficiencies. I know the parts that were hard. Like, I've run a marathon, so I know what running a marathon is like. And so now I have more opportunity to change stuff. And so pacing and having a more serious like pacing strategy definitely would be top of mind if I was considering doing anything for time. Also, I would probably hold a water bottle if I was going to go for time because I was reliant on the volunteers with the cups. I probably wouldn't stop for my, you know, see my family for as long as I did. Like, there was one of the times when I was stopping and hugging people for like 2 minutes. I don't know where this cut me off, but I think I was getting at the point that like I ran a 4 hour and 7-minute marathon and I was stopping like all the time. I was stopping to see like tens of friends. I was stopping at the water stations. So I'm just really excited about this, using it as a learning opportunity to learn about my body and now take it as data on myself, collected data. And now I know what I can do and I can push myself even further and harder as I go in to train for a race. Now, the marathon that I'm doing in the spring, which I've signed up for, will be in April. It's a little bit of a redemption race. It's going to be a fun partnership with Hoka. I feel like you can, you know, get a little hint where it's going to be, but this race is not going to be a fast race for me. There's a lot of elevation. It's a pretty challenging course. So this is just going to be a fun marathon. And then maybe in the fall, we'll do something fast. I don't know. it's kind of nice to just like not have a plan and party because I've been such a perfectionist freak my whole life. So I'm really excited for kind of, the opportunities. And I think as I'm going into winter right now, I've taken a few weeks off running. I've been excited to go back to workout classes. A lot of my friends are fitness instructors or just involved in those communities. And I feel like I haven't seen them because I've just been tunnel vision for the marathon. So I'm super excited to just move my body in different ways and also build up strength and work with my physical therapist, Mike, to work on my inefficiencies. One huge inefficiency I have that's like such a wacky one is that I'm really restricted when I breathe. Because I am 6 feet tall, I slouch over and it doesn't help. With my breath work, my heart rate gets really high. So we've been working a lot on my diaphragm and posture and like figuring that out with running because we figured out like the lower quadrant of my body, but the upper quadrant needs a lot of work. So I'm really excited to be able to like dial into all of those things. I run New York City in the fall again. I don't know. I could do it for a charity. That's how I got into the race. I'm not a long-term girly, especially after my dad dying. Nothing is long-term. Life is in the instant. So I know that I'm going to run a spring marathon, and then after that, don't really know. I ran with no music. That had been a new habit that I'd adopted since my dad passed. I remember the first run the day after he died, I tried to go on a run just because I was like, I need to get something out, and I had music, and I was like, this feels so fucking distracting to have just like any sort of like Baby Keem song playing right now. And I started to listen to my breath. I started listening to my steps. That might feel like some hippie shit, but it really worked for me. It might be spiritual and fucking weird to run without music. Some people do it as well, but I really realized what a beautiful opportunity I have to be alone with myself and really be intentional about how I move and how I think. I've always been on this path of like wanting to be more reflective, and I feel like I'm a very analytical, introspective person as is, but I just wanted to take that to the next level and like truly be with myself and what that really meant and do things that are challenging. Like running without music is challenging. It is challenging to stay stimulated that whole time. But back to the New York City Marathon, I think everyone should run the marathon without headphones. Hearing the cheering, hearing the bands, hearing all the people there for like random people, even if someone's not cheering for you, just to think about like everyone around you has been through this for 16 weeks. We're all doing it together. You might not know the person next to you's story, but what a beautiful opportunity it is. And most people like might not get to run the race more than once. And so I wanted to soak it in, and I would commend you to do the same if you are going to run New York. If you live in New York City, take advantage that you live here and this is where the race is. So I practiced the Queensboro Bridge almost every single long run that I did. Some of them I did in Minnesota when I was back, but every long run that I was here on the weekend, I ran that thing because I knew I did not want that fucker to beat me up on race day. And it wasn't bad for me. It was a fine part of the course. You get off the bridge, you hear people cheering. So it wasn't too difficult for me because I practiced it, and I'm really happy that I did. Some people asked for my least favorite parts of the course. Seeing my family and friends was obviously like favorite parts of the course for me. Bedford Avenue was really fun in Brooklyn. It was so rowdy. There was so much cheering. It got pretty narrow because like the fans were truly on the course, which was kind of scary as a runner, but it was fun. My least favorite part of the course was definitely Fifth Avenue. Fifth Avenue is like a really sneaky part that's like an incline. Until Fifth Avenue is tough because you're at the top of Central Park, and so it's like 125th Street, right? Or something like that. I know intuitively to get to the bottom of Central Park, I have to go to like 55th Street. So I think knowing the street numbers like really fucked me up. Pretty much up until that point, I wasn't thinking about the race in terms of mileage. I was just kind of like, I have to keep going. Like this is the only way to Central Park. I have to keep going. There was never a question to stop. There was never a question of like, what can I do? It was just like, keep going. But when I saw the the street signs, I was like, oh my God, that's a long fucking distance. And it was the last, 6 miles of the course. So I would say that was a really tough part. And I think retrospectively, if I would have like thought about that, I would have probably run Fifth Avenue a lot more often in my training. But I think I looked at it on a map and I was like, okay, yeah, you just like run Fifth Avenue and you're done. Did not realize there was that much of an incline that becomes such a bitch at the end of the race. I think running a marathon is going to be something that changes you, which is so corny, and take that as you wish, but you're putting a lot of time and energy into this thing, and you can take it as seriously or as not seriously as you want. But I think if you're an average person training for a marathon, it's going to be a big thing in your life. And I know there's the stereotypes of making a marathon your whole personality trait. Trust me, I did. Obviously I'm like a running person on the internet, so duh, I would make it my personality, but I've never committed myself that much to myself in my life. I've never allowed myself to be that committed to myself and be committed to a goal, because previously, if I wasn't the best of the best at something, I would quit doing it. And so if you told 18-year-old Kate, like, you're going to run a marathon, I would say, why? I can't win it. Why would I run it? you know? And now my perspective on running and performance and accomplishment is so different that for me, like doing the training was an accomplishment. Having the opportunity to show up to fundraise for Planned Parenthood was an opportunity. Like going on every single training run felt like such a blessing for me. I'm so just appreciative of how much I've changed myself and how much self-work I've done to make myself this person you see on the internet, because I didn't always used to be like this. I didn't used to be like super self-aware and introspective and appreciative of stuff and like really introspective and intentional with my training. I think intentional is something that I've really focused on the past 16 weeks of like, how can I be intentional with my time, with my platform, the way that I talk to my family and friends? How can I be intentional in the ways that I talk to myself? How do I lace up my shoes every day? Like, what am I saying to myself in the mirror? Those are things that I've achieved from running the marathon. And that's stuff that I never thought was possible. This self-talk, positive stuff. I think for a while I was like, I'm never gonna love myself. I'm never gonna love my body. Like that whole like self-love movement. And I don't like love my body, whatever, but I do like being myself. I love being myself. And I feel like I'm Kate and I'm myself and I'm who I'm supposed to be. And so this is just to say, like, even if you're not a running influencer on social media, make the marathon a big thing, okay? I heard this quote recently that like, don't let big things become small things. This is a very big thing. Regardless of how you're training, once again, regardless of what you're going for, this is a lot of your time and energy, and you deserve to be very proud about it. You deserve to be loud about it. You deserve to tell everyone about it and have all your friends and family there. So don't let anyone make you feel small. Running a marathon is very cool. It's an accomplishment. It is an achievement. You're really proud of yourself for committing to yourself and showing up for yourself. But one thing I think you should really pay attention to if you are signing up for a marathon is your why. Why are you doing this? Okay. If you want to run for pace PR, I'm probably not the person you should be following to begin with. Like I take a different approach to running, whatever. Probably not going to have many tips and tricks for you. But if you're just someone that is trying to accomplish something for yourself, having a reason why you're doing it is going to get you through the times when you don't want to wake up, the times when you don't want to do your long runs when it's pouring, raining in New York City 8 weeks in a fucking row. The times when you feel like your body hurts and you're questioning if you can do it. Those are going to come up throughout training, and you have to learn to enjoy that process, and you have to learn to bring yourself back to yourself. Have some sort of mantra or self-talk you do. A lot of my running was about my dad towards the end of it. A lot of my running was proving it, that I can get over this injury, that I can prove to everyone who doesn't believe in me, that thinks I'm just some stoner pothead runner that doesn't know what the fuck she's doing, that no, I can do this, and I can do it in my own way. I can run in my bright colors, I can run high, I can really break the bounds for what it means to be a marathon runner and use my platforms to talk about that, because I want to get more people into running. I think running has been inaccessible for far too long, and I think that everyone should run a marathon. So if you're even thinking about running a marathon, I think you should. It's the best day of my life, and I still feel like I'm not coming down from the marathon high yet. Maybe I am, as winter's approaching and I feel myself getting more seasonally depressed, but the marathon is a beautiful day, and I want to thank you guys so much. You've been here through the training, you've been here through all the books that I've read, you've been here through the self-doubt, and I can't believe that race day just went amazing and it went perfect, and the whole experience was everything I wanted and more, and I'm so excited to take you guys along on my next marathon. So I'll continue to make these videos, and I'll do dedicated training videos once I start officially training for my spring marathon, which I think I can announce very soon. I feel like I've already kind of said out loud what it is, but legally speaking, I don't think I can say. But we'll have a spring race, so there'll be more YouTube videos. In the meantime, I don't really know what videos I'm going to be putting on YouTube here. I'm probably going to go home for the holidays. I am going to go home for Christmas and stuff to see my family, and then I might try to get the fuck out of America and go to Europe, but TBD on that, because, you know, I have to host runs here in New York and I have a life here, so we'll see if I can make it work. But anyways, thank you guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. New York City Marathon was lit and I had a ball, and maybe I run it again in 2024. Who knows? But thank you for watching, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.